Hey guys, it's coming in my review for Nomadland. So what Nomadland is essentially about is we center on the character of Fern, and she is someone who, she's in her 60s, and when the Great Recession ended up happening, she ended up losing basically everything, and so because of that, she has decided to upend her entire life and basically go live in a van for the rest of her life and become a nomad, and we basically see her go along this journey through the American West, but also get to see what her day-to-day life experience is like and why she's decided to make this choice overall. So Nomadland overall, I was obviously hyped for this film. I mean, this is a film that I didn't really know all that much about. Even going into it, I did not know much about it. But it was a film that, everyone's been raving about it. It's been one of the top films of the year. It's getting tons of Oscar buzz and things like that. So obviously I wanted to find a way to watch it. And I almost didn't think I was going to get to watch this film this year because it was supposed to come out in a limited release in the beginning of this month, and it didn't. But thankfully, there was a website near me that was doing like screenings for it. I was able to thankfully get one. I watched it last week and I finally have seen it, and I will just say right now, everything you've heard about this film is absolutely deserving. This is by far one of the best films of the entire year, and this is a film that is very authentic and raw, but also feels very genuine and very heartfelt in that way, and it's a film that I definitely recommend everyone watching. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. Now, the cast for this film is very interesting because unlike most films, this is not a very well-known cast. There's really only a few actors in here. The big one, of course, being Frances McDormand, and I will just say right now, McDormand is one of those actresses where she's in a film, she's probably going to give a really strong performance, but I honestly don't know if she's ever been better than she has been in this film. And look, she's given amazing performances before, but what she's able to do with Fern, I think, is phenomenal, because the majority of the actors in this movie, aside from McDormand, are not really actors, and McDormand just completely transforms into Fern. You forget that you're watching an actor. You feel like you're watching a real person, and I think McDormand did a really good job with that, but there also is a lot asked of her in this role. There are many moments in this film where she really doesn't talk much, and we're just seeing her, do certain things that she does in her day-to-day life, but she's able to just really just open up every single layer of this character just through a facial expression or just through the way that she decides to do things, and it's hard to really explain to watch, but it's such a phenomenal performance. And again, I think it just might be her best work yet, because while in her other roles she's had some really challenging stuff to deal with as well, here it's even more challenging because she's playing a character that at points doesn't really feel like one. It feels like this could very well be a real person, and I think McDormand just did such an incredible job with that, especially when we get deeper into who Fern is and why she decided to make this choice. But it also is not a role that is, it's not the Oscar type role in the sense where she's giving these big monologues and she has these big moments. It's a very subtle role. Fern is not someone that gets angry a lot. She's very reserved. She's very quiet a lot of the time, but she's also very content in the decision that she's made. And I think McDormand just did a really great job at embodying all of that within her character. And for me, it is absolutely one of the best performances of the entire year. And if it was up to me, I honestly do think I would probably nominate her for, I would probably give her the win for Best Actress right now, because I do think it is probably, besides Jessie Buckley, who's not getting any attention, unfortunately, I do think McDormand definitely does deserve that Best Actress win, because I just thought she was absolutely incredible here. The rest of the cast, on the other hand, it's very interesting because this is not a cast that is all that well known. Obviously, David Strathairn, he's done things here and there, and he does a good job in this movie, but he's not really the big standout in this film. The big standouts in this film for me, besides McDormand, were people that aren't really actors, like, say, Linda May and Charlene Swankie and Bob Wells. These are all real people, and Yet, even though they're real people, it feels like they're able to really act well around McDormand. You don't get the sense that these are amateurs. You don't get the sense that these aren't actors. You honestly forget about the fact that they aren't actors, and they just played the role so perfectly. And I really loved what they ended up doing. It felt so real because I think a lot of it was, for these actors, a lot of it I don't think was acting in that way. And you really do feel it. It just feels like they are telling their life story, and I thought they just did a really great job with it. Charlene Swankie, especially, early on in this film, has a scene that honestly had me on the verge of tears. Same with Bob Wells. I mean, they really do some great stuff with a lot of these actors. And again, I don't know if any of them are going to act again. I don't know if they have any ambition to do so. But just the fact they were able to comprise this film of mostly non-actors, and it turns out even slightly well, because that really does not sound like it would work out well. And if anything, it makes the film, not only does it work, it actually makes the film that much stronger. I think is a true accomplishment, and one of the reasons this film works, I think, as well as it does. But now we really do have to get to the directing and the writing here, because that was the other thing that I got really excited about when it came to this film. I think Chloé Zhao as a director, she's someone that I've been on the lookout for since The Rider, and similar to The Rider, what she's able to do really well with Nomadland is not only put a lot of passion into it, but tell the most, I think, authentic and thoughtful story possible. You really do feel her passion throughout this entire film. And I think, once again, the choice to make it almost entirely based on real events, I think was definitely the right one. Unlike The Rider, from Nomadland from the get-go was supposed to be based on real life events, and I think she did a really good job with that in her directing. It just feels very authentic, but it also feels very meticulously directed. It's very hard to put into words the type of way that she helms this film, but I think she just did such an excellent job. She really is just so confident in her directing. There are things that she does that I feel like other directors are just worried to do, which is a lot of the time not really put a lot of emphasis on certain things. She uses a lot of the time to focus on the people themselves, and I think she did a really good job with the direction here, but also the fact that the film feels a lot more hopeful than you really are expecting. You can tell she put a lot of care into these experiences, and they definitely left a significant impact on her, and I really did enjoy that as a director. I feel like a lot of the time this is subject matter that would be handled in a very saddening way, and Zhao finds a way to find the she finds a way to find the fun, but also find a sense of again, thoughtfulness into it. I think thoughtful is definitely the right word. I think she did a really good job with directing it, but her screenplay here, I think, is also very interesting, because I think the big thing you need to know going into this film is that a lot of it doesn't feel like a narrative film, even though it is. I mean, the way this film is comprised, it's almost documentary-esque, especially the first act. There's a lot of scenes of just Fern talking to these people and having very in-depth conversations, and you honestly forget you're watching a fictional film, again, because a lot of it is very much real. I would be very surprised if these people that are in the movie are not just telling their real-life stories. Swankie especially, there is a story brought up with her, and it just feels like this is why, Zhao put her in the movie. I feel like Zhao probably really took her time in researching the life of nomads and getting you to really understand it, because, I'm sure we all know that nomads are out there, but what do they do? Why do they choose to live this life? These are the questions that Zhao really is seeking to answer, and she does a really good job with it here. You get the sense that these are people that, sure, maybe they're not living the life that everyone wants them to, the life that society wants them to, but this is the correct life for them. This is how they want to live, and I think that's something that works very well in this film. It's a big film. It's a film about really just letting people do what they want, and I think that's a very, very good message here. We don't see a lot of films about that. A lot of films, again, would portray this in a way that is very saddening, like this is something that Fern needs to get out of, but once even right at the beginning of the film, like we get the sense that like these people are fine with what they're doing and they don't really plan on deviating from it at any point. And again, that could sound really boring, but the film is just able to make it feel very riveting because it really just feels like the fullest experience possible in that way. When Fern is talking to these people and we're hearing the stories of why they joined, but also why they continue to stay there, all of them just feel so again fulfilling. You feel so attached to these people again because they are real people, a lot of them. And I think they did a really good job with I think Zhao just did a really good job with documenting that here, and I really did appreciate that. But then for Fern as a character, there are only two fictional characters in this movie. That's Fern, and that is David Strathairn's character. And what Zhao is able to do that I think is so impressive is that she doesn't make it seem all that different from Fern. You forget the fact that Fern is played by Frances McDormand. You honestly feel like Fern is just like everyone else, and I think that's very impressive when it comes to this character. But also, the film is very much a character study of why Fern would choose to live this life. There are many moments in this film where people are coming up to her, and they're not necessarily bemoaning the choice that she's made, but they are a little bit concerned. They're telling her, like, hey, you should come to live to my house, or I have, like, a flat or something like that. I can get you in there, but she's not interested in that, and it's not because she is upset about it or that she is trying to hide from something. She just likes the life that she has. She likes the idea of just embracing the wilderness. She likes the idea of doing things in a more, self-sufficient way. Everything she does, in fact, is self-sufficient. A lot of people have talked about the scene where she ends up pooping in a bucket, and yeah, that is something that happens in this movie, but it goes far beyond that. It goes back to the idea that that's something that she's doing independently, and she prefers to do it independently, and I think the film leans into that very well, but you also really do get a sense of who Fern is throughout this movie. Why she's chosen to make this decision. It really does make a lot of sense when you understand what she's gone through, when you understand the position that she's really been in, the tragedy that she's dealt with. You can understand why she's on her own. It's not like she's completely, like out of money. Like she's still taking the jobs that she can at like Amazon or like a factory worker or things like that. And no, they're not the best jobs, but this is just what she prefers to do. And I think the film just did a really good job with leaning into that. So I overall really enjoyed what they ended up doing with Fern as a character. And again, the quieter moments are really something that this film embraces, just Fern going about her daily life. And I think the screenplay is really good. And the way that Zhao is able to make this still feel so riveting, because a lot of this sounds very boring. You have a character who's content with her life. She doesn't really plan on moving on from it. She's just kind of listening to people's stories. It sounds boring, but the way that Zhao does it, it just feels very authentic, and it's something that I think you're going to take a lot from, because you're not going into this film, you're not going to at first realize just how important this stuff is to them, how much they enjoy this lifestyle and how they appreciate this lifestyle. This is their ideal lifestyle, and I think they did a really good job with that overall. I very much enjoyed the screenplay in this film. The dialogue especially is just fantastic. There are a lot of really subtle emotional moments, and again, it's not an awards film in the sense where there are these big, like, lengthy monologues, but there are just some scenes that I think are going to leave a big impact on a lot of people. And like I said, there were some scenes I started to get very teary-eyed at, whether it's getting more into who Fern is as a character, but then also getting into the real-life characters especially. I thought they did just a really great job with. So I enjoyed the screenplay a lot. Definitely one of the best screenplays of the year so far. This is also a film that's very patient. When it comes to the character of Fern especially, you don't get her entire story, in the beginning of the film. It takes a while to fully understand why she's decided to make this choice. From the beginning that she likes what she's doing, she doesn't really plan on leaving it at any point, and she's just kind of happy where she is, but there's a specific reason why she did it, and that wasn't always the case for her. And I think the film did a really really good job at slowly unpacking that. You know, it felt like the film recognized that while this film is a character study, it's also trying to really capture the atmosphere of what these characters' lives are like. You know, the way things happen very gradually for them. You know, this is, again, they don't like to do things in a very quick manner. You know, things happen very slowly and things like that. And so I think the film did a really good job at capturing that overall. And I really enjoyed the way that we slowly unraveled things about Fern. I think the more the film went on, the more interesting of a character she really did become overall. The cinematography, though, in this film is otherworldly, I would say, because other than the screenplay, this film is very much a visual story. A lot of the film is told through the visuals, and I really enjoyed that a lot. You know, there's a lot of just lengthy scenes of Fern, you know, just swimming in a pool, or her climbing a mountain, or her doing some sort of activity with a friend, and there's not any dialogue that's happening, but you really do feel like this is it really feels like a lived-in environment in that way. And I don't know if they filmed in an actual van, I'm pretty sure they did, but it really did feel like you were there. You know, it's probably the most intimate experience possible when it comes to the cinematography. It just adds to the experience of it all, and I think that's one of the best things about this film is just the cinematography. There are just so many scenes that are going to stick in my mind, not only because of how well shot it is, but again, because of how much it lingers on certain things that other films just simply wouldn't. And I think Joshua James Richards' cinematography absolutely should be commended here. It's some of the best that I have seen all year, and it's definitely going to leave, I think, a significant impact on a lot of people for sure. The score is very interesting too, because it's very minimal, but every time that it's used, it definitely left an impact on me. It definitely added to the melancholy sort of feel of it all, and I thought they did a good job with that. The editing as well, I definitely was into this film pretty much the whole time. It never really dragged for me. I never was bored with what was going on, and I thought overall the editing here was really great. The film is definitely very well paced. I will say I really only have one issue with this movie, and it concerns David Strathairn's character. I didn't dislike his character or anything, but there is a bit of a shoehorned subplot with him and Fern, and I just didn't think it served as much of a purpose as the film really thought that it did. I think it's something that they could have maybe expanded upon a bit more, and I would have liked them to maybe dive into it a little bit. It just kind of felt like the film started to develop more of a story, and I actually preferred it when there wasn't as much of a story and we could just kind of let things breathe, and we could just kind of let the people in this environment, you know, tell their story in that way, because it made it feel more real, and that's the way they prefer to live overall. They don't like a very productive lifestyle. They don't like a very structured life. They like to just do things as they happen, and I think, you know, adding this story to it, I understand the purpose, you know, why he's here. I just wish they could have done maybe a little bit less of it, because I didn't care as much about it overall. And again, I'm not saying that Strathairn as a character wasn't someone I enjoyed watching, because I did. I thought he was a very fun and at times very endearing character, but they try to do this like romantic sort of subplot between him and Fern, and it just didn't really work for me. It felt like you could have honestly cut that out of the film entirely, and it was the one thing where when they kept coming back to it, I just wasn't as invested as I was in the rest of the film. I still enjoyed it, but just the other parts of the film I just enjoyed just slightly more. Other than that, though, I think this film is pretty much perfect. I think there's a lot of things this film does very well. It's a very different kind of film than we normally do get. It lingers a lot on very long conversations. It lingers a lot on very mundane sort of activities, but because of those things, it just makes it feel that much more authentic. It just makes the film feel that much more real, and overall, I think it makes it a very special film that I really hope everyone does get a chance to see. This is absolutely one of the best films of the entire year. It left such a huge impact on me, and I'm definitely going to give Nomadland overall an A. It really sucks that a lot of you are going to have to wait till February to watch this movie, because trust me when I say this is really something special. And I have to be honest, there has not really been a film that like I've had more of an urge to see in a theater than this one. While watching this movie, I was just like, I really wish I could have seen this in a theater. I know obviously COVID, things like that, it makes sense why it's been delayed. It makes sense why it's a very limited release when it does come out. I get that. But it's definitely a film that if I had had the opportunity, I just really wish I could have gotten a chance to see it in a theater, because I really do think this film is a spectacle to behold for sure. But other than that, guys, in my review of Nomadland, let me know what you guys saw of this movie overall, left your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.